Welcome everybody to the first episode of Snake Eater Garage, if you could call it that. So we've been taking on some customer cars lately, a lot of really nice stuff. We've had supercharged Tahoe in here, 57 Bel Air, and now we have the legendary 62 Impala SS with the 409, but we're gonna be LS swapping it. Getting rid of the old 409 because nobody likes those motors anymore. I'm just kidding. But yeah, this car was a project. It is currently on consignment at a friend of ours dealership. They want to get it sold. It's pretty hard to sell a project, especially when you're asking a lot of money for it, which this car does deserve a lot of money, but doesn't run, doesn't drive right now. So we're trying to get it up and running and driving to help the customer sell their car. So let's go over it a little bit. I'll show you what it is. It's a pretty badass car, but like I said, the owner had some health issues, had to put it up for sale, wasn't able to finish it. But let's start here in the engine bay. We'll kind of go over the good, the bad, the ugly. The good, the 409, the Chevy 409. Everybody knows this motor, has a cult following. Beach Boys wrote a song about it. Every baby boomer that sees this car or that we talk to is like, is that a 409? And they're like, yes it is. Now this 409 is particularly badass because it's been bored and stroked to 480 cubic inch. It's a professionally built motor, dynoed at 620 pound-feet of torque and I think 550 horsepower. 675 horsepower, 620 pound-feet of torque. It's a monster of a motor. Aluminum cylinder heads. It's mated to a Richmond 5-speed transmission, so this is a standard car, this should make this car really fun to drive once we get it going. It's got some aftermarket radiator, a few other little goodies in here. The reason it's here is it has a Sniper EFI, and the EFI issue was the EFI was giving issues, and they believed that was a problem. It's not. As we go forth, you'll start to see that there's an incomplete wiring harness in this car. The car's apparently sat for a while. Some field mice have gotten into it. And so we're gonna go through, clean it up. But first, before we show you all the bad stuff, I'll show you all the good. Overall, this car is very straight. It's pretty good. Paint is a little bit older, needs a little love, but beautiful engine bay so far. Once we get the wiring cleaned up in there, it's gonna be fantastic. You got the OG Krager SS's down here, just era appropriate hot rod wheels. Interior, really great shape. Nothing to complain about here. One maybe small tear in the seat, but other than that, this thing is pretty good. Carpet, all that stuff. Once we pulled the rat nest out, which is right down there, if you want to show that. Once we got the rat nest out of the kick panel, that took it to a whole nother level. But yeah, so far interior is looking good, paint is good, the exhaust looks really well built. It has a straight header dump, manual dump, not electronic, but if you get down there and pop those 3 bolts out, this thing will run straight headers. And I'm really freaking excited to hear that because this motor should absolutely rip. Iconic triple tail light car. 6 total tail lights, beautiful rear end, car looks great overall. Now let's go into some of the things that we're going to be working on. We sent an estimate to the person who's got this car on consignment, and he's willing to have us do some of the work to help this stuff get sold, but being that he doesn't really own the car, he doesn't want to put a ton of money into it, so we're not going to be able to do the full work, but we will be running and driving once we're done with what we got. And so next owner, hit us up. We already know this car really well, but you can take a look up under the dash. There's a big mess of spaghetti under here. They've used speaker wire for a lot of the gauges, etc. I'll let Phil kind of show you what he's already pulled out and what's already come out and what's still in there and what's gonna go back in order to get this thing running. Because right now, when it came here, none of the lights worked on this car, and anytime we tried to key it on and start the car, we could smell a short. a very bad short in the car. So we're hoping the Holley system and all that stuff isn't fried, but I'll let Phil take it from here.
Yeah, so the car came in, we were told that it ran, not drove, but ran and was able just to move around. And then the story got changed to where like, oh, it ran and then just quit running all of a sudden. And then we got another story saying that they saw smoke coming out from the dash. So to me, that leads to bad wiring. And I looked inside underneath the dash, and it took me about 5 seconds to find the short. There's nothing but wiring like this that's not even crimped or butt connected or soldered. It's just electrical tape and twist it together and pray that it doesn't catch fire. Well, this car almost did catch fire because of stuff like that. What it was one of the main body plugs that runs through the whole car for your lights, dash lights, door lights, pretty much everything, and your ignition runs through there too. And what was going on, every time you hit the clutch or get close to the e-brake, it was short out and just smoking. So we're hoping it didn't smoke the Sniper EFI, because we tried doing a little tune to get it fired up and it just keeps sucking the data right out. So now I have to go underneath the dash, fix what's all been there. So I have to rewire all that, get the dash lights working again. I'm going to get the courtesy lights working again. I'm trying to get it back to as factory as possible. So that way you just open the door and it's like a time capsule. It's cool. It's awesome. Especially a 409. These cars are awesome. I've driven 4 or 5 of them. They're absolutely amazing cars. So then I have to go underneath the engine bay here, and then see what's going on here. Like, we have wires ran to we don't know, and they're clipped off and spliced into who knows what. Don't have a clue on that. You got 3 wires running off the alternator. Why you need 3? You only need 1, unless you got a gauge in there. We have electric fan relays that just been like cut so short and then extended and then cut again, and then let's keep the original harness in here on the original voltage regulator. And by the way, I was taking my death wheel to it and I cut the horn relay. Oops. Let me just shove it back in here. Awesome. All right, guys, so I was going through the harness here, and needless to say, I found a lot of things wrong with this thing. Like, this is the original voltage regulator with wires and stuff like that. This is the one that kind of got me, it cracked me up. So they had this running through the original body plug because they messed it up, I guess, taking it off and wallered out the holes and everything. And then they had your horn wired into your temp gauge. Probably explains why the horn relay's cut in half. I don't know. So I can tell someone's been in here repinning things. So I have everything repinned as it should be. They had a lot of things, like this wire here is supposed to go to your wiper motor, and they had it on the coil. And that probably explains why we've had problems with this thing trying to get it to fire, and it just goes pop and doesn't do anything else, because this isn't a constant 12 volts with ignition on. And then here's your oil pressure switch. They had it on a ground somewhere, which isn't correct either. Then your original temp gauge, they had something wired into that also, which wasn't correct at all. They had stuff wired into the Holley and everything else, and so I had to get the original diagram for it, repin everything like it should be. Their pins mixed and matched, and just surprised me if this car ever ran. So now I'm gonna go through everything, clean it all up. Like, this is the kicker right here. kind of cracked me up a little bit. Hey, go grab me more butt connectors. I cut it way too short. Oh, I cut it short again. Let me extend it. There we go. And it's all different gauge wire, steps down, which is, you don't do that. And then up here too, factory harness. You can tell they've been messing with something. And this did all these kind of butt connectors here. So this probably explains why our headlights and tail lights don't work. There's no turn signals, there's no high beams, there's no low beams. And in the rears, the lights don't even work. And on the rears on these Impalas are very hard sometimes to get them all working correctly as you need. So that's going to take a little bit more time to figure that out. Every time you try to start it, it wants to fire off, and then you hear because how they have the starter, it's not even shimmed correctly, and the shims are on the bottom, and it's cocked, and it just chewed up the flywheel. So now we have to get another flywheel for it, make sure the starter's okay, or if not, try to find a 409 starter for it, and then go from there. And we have to do some adjustment on the shifter and everything else because they did convert it to a Richmond 5-speed, which is awesome. This car deserves a 5-speed in it. Be a nice little cruise around, go on the highway, go have fun. Sunday, go get your ice cream after church or little church cruiser, whatever.
All right, boys and girls, so we finally got the 62 Impala SS up on the lift. We're gonna take a look underneath, and so far it's not looking too good, which is, you know, unfortunate. As a fan of this car, and especially with this badass motor in it, I would love to see it have gotten the treatment that it's supposed to, but it looks like it's been to some pretty tough shops. We'll kind of just start from here. You can see the transmission cross member is kind of a homemade deal, which, you know, in theory this isn't terrible, just using a straight piece like this. Ideally, you know, we would build something that allows it to have a sort of a base plate, and then for the center section to be removed. And then if you're going to cut your 2x2 square stock with a torch, you would at least grind it and not have all these sharp angles, but they didn't. There's no plate on the other side of this, so the hardware is kind of just crushing the frame also. So ideally we'd build a sandwich plate for that to stop that hardware from doing that. Ideally we'd also get the correct length hardware for the transmission here. What else? We got some kind of homemade patch panels up under here. If you can see, you've got 4 different patch panels in this area here. You've got, well, not 4 different, you got 3. You've got the original sheet metal, a mild seal, a painted one. I'm not sure what that's from, if that's original, you know, sheet metal or something, because it's kind of close to the color of the car. And then you've got this one here, and this is, I mean, you can see the amount of the sheet metal screws, right? I mean, it's all done with sheet metal screws coming from the wrong direction to get a nice tight fit. I mean, if you were going to, in theory, use a sheet metal screw, you'd probably want to go from the bottom up, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Then you got a lot of stuff like this. Instead of just getting the right length hardware, lots of washers as shims. This we kind of expect speedo cable. You know, this is a Richmond 5-speed. Didn't come factory in this car, so this is probably on the wrong side. Doesn't match up. Shifter linkage is feeling really terrible, so we're gonna adjust that. Let's see what else we got. We got some kind of farm grade welding going on here. Like the exhaust itself must be a kit, and then whoever installed it must be whoever didn't build it, because it's actually pretty nice. The exhaust itself fits really well in the car, but then all of the exhaust hangers, the welds are terrible, and then this one's just dangling here. It's not even hooked up to the car. So what else do we have under here? I mean, this is kind of the bread and butter. You got some baling wire to hold your fuel line in. Starter has, oh yeah, that's right. You got transmission to the bell housing hardware is very loose. That one's backed out almost, I'd say it's at least a 1/4 inch, close to 3/8 of an inch maybe. It's just very unfortunate. This is a beautiful motor it looks like somebody built. I don't know if this is the motor builder, but they chose all nice hardware and everything, and the dyno numbers on it look incredible. But it's unfortunate. Now, the other unfortunate thing, scary story time, the customer denied our estimate to fix this stuff underneath the car. So that kind of made us sad. It sucks. You know, they you know, are having trouble putting the amount of money into it that it would have taken. We even tried lowering our labor rate to about the cheapest labor you can find in this area, I would say, other than going to somebody's side yard. It would definitely the cheapest we can offer as a shop. And I think the cheapest anyone's offering as a shop, and they just said they just couldn't put that money into it. So unfortunately, we don't get to do any fabrication. I'd love to make a nice patch panel and a nice new frost member. I even told them we could reuse this and just make a new center section, but they said no, they couldn't take it. So basically we're just rewiring this car. They want to run and drive so they can sell it. And yeah, it is what it is, I guess. You know, you can get attached to these cars. Admittedly, I got a little attached to it. I was hoping to do all this work. I was surprised, to be honest with you, when they came back and said no, and they didn't want to do it after showing them that, especially when you got 620 pound-feet of torque, 600 some horsepower, and you've got a cross member like that. You know, you spent probably $20,000-$30,000 on a motor. But it is what it is. We're about to go pick up another car, and so this one we had to order some parts and pull this one off the lift and go get another car. And maybe after we send this video over, they'll change their mind on the estimate. We'll see.